The year is 1914, Europe erupts in war. Imperial Russia joins the Allied powers. The Russian people are initially enthusiastic. They believe in defending their nation. However, the war quickly reveals deep cracks in Russian society. The Tsarist regime, headed by Nicholas II, is deeply unpopular. It is seen as incompetent and out of touch with the suffering of the people. The Russian army is ill-equipped. It suffers devastating losses against the German war machine. On the home front, food shortages and economic hardship become commonplace. The war effort cripples the already weak Russian economy. People are tired of war. They begin to question the Tsar's leadership. The once unshakable Tsarist autocracy is teetering on the brink of collapse. February 1917. Petrograd, the Russian capital, erupts in protest. Workers facing starvation and poverty strike for bread. Their demonstrations quickly escalate into calls for political change. The Tsar orders the army to quell the unrest. However, the soldiers, weary of war and sympathetic to the people, begin to disobey. Some even join the protesters. The situation spirals out of control for the Tsar. Faced with mounting pressure and the disintegration of his authority, Tsar Nicholas II makes a fateful decision. He abdicates the throne, ending centuries of Romanov rule in Russia. A new government is formed, known as the Provisional Government. It is composed of liberal and moderate socialist leaders. Their goal is to establish a democratic Russia. However, the Provisional Government makes a critical mistake. It chooses to continue the increasingly unpopular war. This decision proves fatal, as it fails to address the concerns of the exhausted populace. Amidst the chaos and uncertainty of 1917, a new force emerges, the Soviets. These are councils of workers, soldiers, and peasants. They spring up across Russia. The Soviets represent the interests of the working class. They quickly gain popular support. The Petrograd Soviet in particular wields considerable influence. It competes with the Provisional Government for power. The Soviets become a focal point for revolutionary sentiment. They advocate for radical change. They demand an end to the war, land redistribution for the peasantry, and better working conditions for laborers. The Provisional Government, caught between its commitment to the war effort and the growing demands of the Soviets, struggles to maintain control. The stage is set for another revolution. April 1917. A sealed train arrives at Petrograd's Finland station. It carries Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, a revolutionary exiled for his radical views. Lenin is a charismatic leader. He heads the Bolshevik faction of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. The Bolsheviks are a disciplined and radical group. They believe in a socialist revolution led by the proletariat. Lenin wastes no time in making his intentions clear. He issues his famous April Theses. This document calls for all power to the Soviets. Lenin believes that the Provisional Government is a bourgeois institution incapable of achieving true social justice. He argues that only a government led by the Soviets can bring about a genuine socialist revolution. Lenin's return galvanizes the Bolsheviks. His message resonates with the increasingly radicalized masses. Section 5. The October Revolution, Seizing Power. As 1917 progresses, Russia descends further into chaos. The Provisional Government, weakened and discredited by its inability to end the war or address the economic crisis, clings precariously to power. The Bolsheviks, with their message of peace, land, and bread, see an opportunity. They begin to plot an armed insurrection. On the night of October 25th, which is November 7th in the Gregorian calendar, the Bolsheviks, led by Leon Trotsky, strike. They seize key government buildings in Petrograd, including the Winter Palace, the seat of the Provisional Government. The October Revolution, as it becomes known, is remarkably swift and relatively bloodless. The Provisional Government collapses and the Bolsheviks declare themselves the new leaders of Russia. Section 6. The First Soviet Government, Early Decrees. With the success of the October Revolution, the Bolsheviks, now calling themselves communists, set about establishing the world's first socialist state. Lenin forms the Council of People's Commissars, better known as Sovnarkom, as the new government. Lenin becomes its chairman. One of the new government's first acts is to issue the Decree on Peace. This decree calls for an immediate end to the war. It proposes peace negotiations with all belligerents. The decree is a propaganda coup for the Bolsheviks. It resonates with the war-weary Russian people and soldiers desperate to return home. The government also issues the Decree on Land. This decree abolishes private land ownership and redistributes land to the peasants. These early decrees demonstrate the Bolsheviks' commitment to fulfilling their revolutionary promises. They aim to secure popular support and consolidate their hold on power. Section 7. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk and Civil War. Lenin's hope for a just and equitable peace treaty with Germany and its allies proves to be wishful thinking. The Germans, eager to secure their eastern borders, dictate harsh terms in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, signed in March 1918. Russia is forced to cede vast territories including Poland, Finland, and the Baltic states. The treaty is a bitter pill to swallow for many Russians. The signing of the treaty plunges Russia into a bloody civil war. The Red Army, the Bolshevik military force, faces opposition from various groups collectively known as the Whites. The Whites include monarchists, liberals, socialists who oppose the Bolsheviks, and foreign powers intervening to prevent the spread of communism. The Russian Civil War is a brutal and chaotic conflict. It lasts for 3 years and claims millions of lives. Section 8. The New Economic Policy and International Recognition. By 1921, the Russian economy is in ruins. Years of war, revolution, and internal strife have taken a devastating toll. Faced with economic collapse and widespread famine, Lenin makes a strategic retreat from his initial policy of complete nationalization. He introduces the New Economic Policy, or NEP. The NEP allows for a limited revival of private enterprise. Small businesses and farms are allowed to operate for profit. The state retains control of heavy industry and banking. The NEP is a pragmatic compromise. It helps to revive the Russian economy. By 1924, the worst of the famine is over. The Soviet Union, formally established in 1922, begins to gain international recognition. However, it remains largely isolated in a hostile capitalist world. Section 9, Conclusion, A Legacy of Revolution and Its Echoes Today. The Bolshevik Revolution was a pivotal event in world history. It led to the creation of the Soviet Union, the world's first socialist state. The revolution had a profound impact on Russia and the world. It inspired revolutionary movements across the globe. It also triggered the Cold War, a decades-long ideological struggle between the Soviet Union and the United States. Today, the legacy of the Bolshevik Revolution remains complex and contested. In Russia, it is a source of both pride and controversy. The events of 1917 continue to shape Russia's relations with the West. As we look at the current geopolitical landscape, with Russia asserting itself on the world stage, the echoes of its revolutionary past are impossible to ignore. The story of the rise of Lenin and the first Soviet government is a reminder of the enduring power of ideology, the human cost of revolution, and the complexities of navigating the tumultuous currents of history.